Welcome, folks. I'm glad you want to join me on this flight from Grand Rapids, Michigan, KGRR Airport, as some people might call it. It's the Gerald R. Ford Airport in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Beautiful regional airport. We're going to have some payware to enjoy as we are there. And heading over Lake Michigan for a pretty quick flight into Chicago O'Hare Airport. Chicago O'Hare is default scenery, but I believe it's one of the enhanced, I'm sure it's one of the handcrafted airports that come with Microsoft Flight Simulator. So we'll enjoy that as well. But before we get started, let's do a little preliminary flight planning. And by that I mean using our friend at SimBrief. Have to forgive me a little bit. I'm still looking at my operational flight plan for my previous flight, which was, oh goodness, it was so far away, so long ago. It was just a few minutes ago, actually. It was Rockford, Illinois to St. Louis, Missouri. But we'll get rid of that in short order. Now, what I also want to bring up here is my A3, this is a website, A320 takeoff calculator. And this is written by a site called wabpro.cz/A320. And there's no charge to use this. You get full performance without any charge. But a little bit of work has gone into this. Originally, there was a 320 was the only airplane available. Now I believe there's the 319 also available. And hopefully in the future, this will be available for the Airbus A321. But for right now, the 320 is of our concern. I have donated to Dave Katona, and I wish that all of you, if you use this regularly, donate as well, because this really kicks up the immersion level, in my opinion. And I very much appreciate his efforts. So this consists, there are actually 5 different parts here: weight and balance, takeoff, checklists for the aircraft, very wonderful checklist, and setup. But, and then of course the about. But the only part that I ever use is the weight and balance and the takeoff. So let's start with the weight and balance, and I'm going to generate a random weight and balance, and then I'm going to give that information over to SimBrief, and then SimBrief is going to import it into the aircraft. So basically I'll work from the left to the right. We are flight number 43. Our destination is Chicago. Aircraft registry doesn't matter so much, but in this case it's a Canadian registered airplane, 747 Sierra Papa. We have a flight deck crew of 4. We have a cabin crew of, flight deck crew of 2 and a cabin crew of 4. Let's give us a, we're Allegiant Airlines, which is a discount carrier. So we'll give us the maximum configuration of 186. And let's have a high passenger demand and a high baggage demand and a low cargo demand. I just chose those randomly. And let's push random load. So we have a capacity of 186. The random load has given us 184 passengers. So only 2 empty seats back in coach. We've got, there's our baggage breakdown. And we can initialize. This gives us our 0 fuel weight, takeoff and landing weights. It shows us where we are in the flight envelope. We are legal. We are within the flight envelope. But you can see we're pretty high on the envelope for our weight. So we're running pretty heavy. Takeoff. Our origin is Kilo G Golf Romeo Romo, Airport. Outside air temperature. That's an interesting question. I don't know what the outside air temperature is, but we'll find out soon enough, because let's get our flight configured in the simulator. And we'll put us at a gate. I believe there's only 1 or 2 gates at this little airport. Well, it looks like there are more than I thought there were. Actually, let me zoom in a little bit because I really want to. I've used this airport before. I mentioned it is payware airport, and I got this airport along with several others in the central United States, but I noticed that the jet bridges didn't work. And I don't think it's a quirk of me. I think in general, the jet bridges don't work for anyone. So, okay, here are the gates. Yeah, this gate seems to be good enough, so that'll be fine. Flight conditions are live traffic, live weather, live time. All players are there, but you won't see them because the labels have been turned off. So you might see their airplanes flashing around a little bit, but you won't see any of their tags. They just look like other airplanes. And that's fine, you know, as more realistic as possible. That's my opinion. So let's push fly, get the flight simulator working on that. And while that's happening, we'll go to our sim brief, set up a new flight, I'm not going to put in an airline because that will confuse air traffic control if I have the airline in the sim brief, and also as part of the program, it'll many times it'll give me a double, like it'll say United Flight 43. I only want that once. So we'll let the program determine the airline, and the sim brief won't give it an airline at all. We are flight number 43. We're flying from Kilo Golf Romeo Romeo. We are arriving at Kilo Oscar Romeo Delta, and our alternate is Detroit Wayne Airport. Kilo Delta Tango Whiskey is Detroit Wayne Airport. Oh, look at the beautiful winter setting we have here in February. We'll choose our Airbus A320, and I'm going to hold off on the rest of this until we get our takeoff calculator finished. What happened to our takeoff? I hope we didn't lose our takeoff calculator. Well, I think we may have lost our... Let's take a look over here. There it is. I'm going to push ready to fly. And notice how even if the jet bridges were working, the position of the aircraft is very awkward in relationship to the jet bridges. So that's very strange. I hope the developer of this airport puts the jet bridges on the correct left side of the aircraft and then makes them operable. But what I want from this is the this little map right here, and this will give us our current conditions. Oops. So, temperature is -7 degrees. That would be very cold in Fahrenheit, but I believe that's centigrade or Celsius, so it's not as cold as it would be in Fahrenheit. Wind direction is 249 at 22 knots. Boy, that's a healthy wind. 249 at 22 knot. 22. Elevation is put in automatically. When it knows the airport, it will put in the elevation. We're going to use a flap setting of 2 because the runways here are comparatively short. This is a regional airport. We'll leave the packs on. We'll consider the runway, and ice will be off, and the runway will consider to be dry. And let's calculate. The information, okay. Oh, I don't think it likes that. We didn't select a runway. Select, let's see here. Wind is from 250. So the best runway, goodness. Boy, there aren't a lot of good choices. 17, I think, would be the best runway. Let's push calculate. Okay, here we go. We're a heavy load. 135 V1, 136 V2, 139 VR and V2, 36 and 39. Here's what we wanted to get. We wanted to get a flex temp. This is the temperature, the artificial temperature you're going to tell the flight computer to make the engines run slightly less powerful, and that helps engine life. It also helps out with noise abatement. So when possible, we'll do a flex takeoff, and that flex temperature, instead of the -7 temperature, we're going to tell the airplane that the temperature is actually 66 degrees. That's a very warm day in centigrade land. So the airplane engines won't work as hard. And then the other thing we want to get is our stabilizer trim number, which is -1.4 down. So that's all the information we wanted from the takeoff calculator, and it doesn't seem like a lot, but it is important. So I'm glad we did that. I'm going to minimize, before I minimize it, let's transfer that information over here. So we want a our zero fuel weight is 59.5. Our number of passengers is 184. Oh, goodness. Well, the calculator only goes up to 180. I guess it's the best we're going to do. And the sim brief will generate how much fuel is required. So we'll let the sim brief do that. And we will generate an operational flight plan. We can minimize this. We can push that into a different screen. We don't have the ability to use a jet bridge. I'm going to try to connect one if there was one to connect. Nope, doesn't work. We can give us some external power though. And we can get the baggage loading process started. Yeah, we can also admire the scenery. Let's quickly, I mean, it is payware, right? And we are paying for the view. So let's enjoy the view. Let's go to camera, showcase mode, and this will get our drone functioning. And with my Microsoft Gamepad, I can look. And the most stunning thing about Ford Airport is this glass awning that covers the entryway. Oh, we got a Black Hawk helicopter down here at the edge of the runway. Probably from the Michigan National Guard, I imagine. But this glass awning with the little wave on it is what you pass under when you're on the airport drive. And you can see they've replicated it pretty well. If you want to see a really nice payware airport, go to the X-Plane version. Oh, look at this glass awning. That is nicely done. Go in the X-Plane version, you'll see cars traveling underneath this drive, and this is the entry drive where you drop off your loved ones to the airport. Gerald Ford Airport. Those of you who might not be familiar with United States presidents, Gerald Ford was the only president not elected by the people. He was the I think he was Speaker of the House when Spiro Agnew, President Nixon's vice president, when he resigned, he became vice president, and then when President Nixon resigned, he became president. So he was never elected as a president of the United States, and the only one ever. As Nixon resigned, and then later on, President Ford gave President Nixon blanket immunity, a blanket pardon. He was prematurely pardoned for anything when President Ford took office. Well, there's the Red Bull aircraft. Okay, a little tour of Grand Rapids Airport. There's the control tower. If you're not really familiar for where Grand Rapids is located, we'll pull up this map right here. Give you a little idea. There's Grand Rapids, Michigan. It's just north of Kalamazoo, Michigan. They have an air museum at Kalamazoo. It's called the Air. What's it called? The Air Zoo. Of course, you know, a zoo has animals, but an air museum has airplanes, so it's called the Air Zoo, I think. There's Toledo, Ohio, and just northeast of Toledo, Ohio is Detroit, Michigan. Detroit is certainly the biggest city in the state of Michigan. Some people call Michigan, they call it a mitten. If you look at the shape of the state of Michigan, it looks kind of like a mitten. And there's a little town right in here. It's called Mom, M-O-M. They call it the middle of the mitten. But there it is. And here's Chicago down to our west. We're going to be flying basically southwest. So we'll be flying over Lake Michigan and make approach into Chicago. So it gives you a little bit of a rough idea of oops, didn't mean to maximize that, sorry. We'll get that pushed off to the other screen. That's what I meant to do. And I think I'm gonna have a little salutation to anybody who might be watching. Howdy, YouTube watchers. And then my chat will be available off on the side of the screen as well. Now again, this is only the second time I've streamed, so I'm not monstrously comfortable with handling chat while I'm flying, but I'm going to try to check on it from time to time and see if anyone makes a comment over there. Let's get out of showcase mode and back to our aircraft. There we are. Okay, did we get the baggage? Did I get the baggage started? I forget. Maybe I didn't. I'll request a fuel truck. We can have the eye candy of a fuel truck come with us, but we're actually going to load our fuel by using SimBrief. That SimBrief plan that we just made will be automatically loaded into our flight computer, and this is exactly the way the airlines would use it. They would use what's called a data link, a radio transmission directly to the computer. Let's hop aboard. Boy, it's a lot quieter in here. First step, we'll get external power. We have external power, so we use it. Turn on batteries number 1 and number 2. We'll get things a little warm in the cockpit. Get rid of some of that winter chill. Get the temperatures cranked up. We will arm our emergency exits so the cabin crew and any service personnel can find their way out of the aircraft in a dark emergency. Turn on the no smoking sign, turn on the seatbelt sign, turn on our nav 1 and nav 2 lights. 1 and 2 are interchangeable. Wing lights on. Leave the beacon light off. This allows folks working under the airplane know as long as that light is off, they can continue to work under the airplane. But when we turn that on, it'll clear them out of the way. Put the strobe in auto mode. We will turn on the crew oxygen supply, and we'll get the inertia reference system lined up, or the ADIRS, as it's called in the Airbus world. Let's do a fire test on the APU. That test's okay. And we'll do a smoke test in the cargo bay. And that works okay. For right now, we are done with the overhead. Let's get down to our flight computer. I'm going to choose the ATSU option and then go to the AOC. This is the company menu. The menu to communicate with our company. I'm going to go to perform weight and balance. I'm going to request our operational flight plan information that we made through SimBrief. There it is. Here's our block fuel, the total fuel that we calculated from our SimBrief. Now, if we go up here to the EFIS panel, this panel here on our upper right-hand side, and push the fuel button, you can see our onboard fuel is 9460. That's much higher than the fuel we need of 6144. In the real world, what you would do is you would fly with that fuel, and then you would lower your passenger ability or your cargo ability to make your numbers match, because it's very difficult to pump out fuel from an airplane. You would probably also admonish the pilot before you, hey, don't land with so much fuel next time. we don't want to lighten our load. That's our revenue. But we're lucky we live in the sim world, and we can actually change our onboard fuel with the push of a button. So we'll do that. I'm going to push this refuel airplane button. And now we have loaded the airplane to 60 kilograms. That's much closer to our block fuel number, and we have the fuel that we need. So this is page 1 out of 2. Let's go to page number 2. We have 180 passengers aboard. Our zero fuel weight. Remember, this is coming from SimBrief. Remember, our calculator gave us 182, but we weren't able to load that into SimBrief because the maximum capacity was 180. So here we at 180. This is our center of gravity. This is our zero fuel weight. And we will push load. We're going to load the aircraft to those numbers. Forward baggage, rear baggage. That is all done. Now, let's go to the data button, working our way from the right to the left as we do in the Airbus world. In the Boeing world, you would often work your way from the right to the left. We're going to go to aircraft status. We are going to confirm we have LEAP 1A engines with the current AIRAC cycle. These are actually expired. We're going to pretend it's not. And our second nav database can be expired, and it is expired as well. Let's go to our initialization page. We're going to request our information from SimBrief. Kilo Grrr Airport to Chicago O'Hare. The reason O'Hare Airport is named after a Navy pilot. Early in World War II, the United States was losing naval battle after naval battle out in the Pacific Ocean. And a young Navy pilot, I believe he was an ensign, maybe lieutenant, his name was O'Hare, earned the Medal of Honor. He really did earn the Medal of Honor. I believe he shot down 4 or 5 airplanes in the Battle of Guadalcanal, one of the first battles for the United States in World War II. And he became an air ace, and he earned the Medal of Honor. And the airport that was in Chicago, O'Hare might have been from the Chicago area, I'm not sure about that, but they renamed the airport in honor of this Navy pilot, so it is now O'Hare Airport. But prior to that, this part of Illinois was full of orchards, and the location was called Orchard Park, and ORD is actually short for orchard. So that's where that comes from. If you ever wondered why O'Hare Airport is called KORD, it's named for Orchard Park, the name of the airport prior to Navy Lieutenant O'Hare, who won the Medal of Honor. Anyway, cost index is 53. I always like to fly with a little bit of a higher cost index. It's not as efficient, but gets us there a little faster. This number is between 0 and 99. I'll give it an 85. That's a number I like to fly with. Oh, I'm sorry. Flight number is 43. I'm sorry. I put that number in the wrong spot. 85 will be our cost index. There we go. Initialization. Now we'll go to performance. Our flap setting will be 2 because we have relatively short runways. Flex temp. Now here's where that calculator comes in handy. We got our flex temp, and it was, if we remember, it was 66. And our stabilizer trim number is negative 1.4 down. Actually, when you say negative, you actually mean down, or in the opposite or downward direction. So you don't need to put in the negative number when you're talking to the flight computer. Here's the fuel truck. The fuel truck has just arrived. Let's take a look at him. I'm going to close out the fuel sheet because, oh, where is the fuel truck? Usually when you request fuel, you get a fuel truck. Oh, there he is. He's over here on the other side. As soon as I closed out the sheet, he disconnected, and he's going to drive away. And you could fuel using that fuel sheet, but we loaded our fuel through the flight computer, so we don't need him. But it's nice to see him. We were saying that stabilizer trim number, negative means down. So when you're talking to the flight computer, you don't need to enter that negative number. It'll know in the down direction. 1.4 down and 66 on our flex temp. And we have our takeoff speeds as well. Okay. /1.4 down and 66 for our flex temp. Transition altitude in North America is always 18,000 feet. This is a number that can change because in Europe The transition altitude can change based on a region or based on a country. And then our V-speed should already be calculated right there. Runway 35. Is that the runway that we chose? Not 100% sure on that. Let's tune in the ATIS. See what runway they're using.
Grand Rapids Airport information, Whiskey 1300 Zulu. Wind 246 at 37. Visibility 2. Sky condition, few clouds at 700 feet, few clouds at 4,000 feet, few clouds at 12,600 feet. Temperature, -7. Dew point, 10. QNH, 29.45. ILS runway, 26 left in use. Landing and departing runway, 26 left and runway 26 right. All aircraft read back hold short instructions. Advise controller, on initial contact, you have Whiskey.
26 left is the runway. Let's go back to
Grand
performance.
Rapids Airport information, Whiskey 1300 Zulu. Wind 246 at 37. Visibility 2. Sky condition, few clouds at 700 feet, few clouds at 4,000 feet.
Okay, let's 26 left is our runway. We'll go to our flight plan. You might have noticed I pushed our departure airport. I chose departure, and then I chose 26 left as our runway, and then there are no standard instrument departures for this airport, so you just inserted that. Big airports have SIDS, standard instrument departures. They also have STARS, or standard arrival routes. And here's one place where the program Pilot to ATC comes in really handy. Not only will it provide us with a wonderful air traffic control, but it's great for flight planning. So I'm going to fire it up. I'm going to go to our sim brief and get our flight plan that we got from sim brief. There you can see our routing. I'm going to push flight plan import. I'm going to tell Pilot to ATC our routing. We are starting at Kilo Golf Romeo Romeo, the KGRR airport. And we're going direct to Walter, WLTER. Direct to Wind, WYNDE. Maybe that's in reference to the Windy City. And then there's our arrival, the Wind 9 arrival. But I'm not going to tell Pilot to ATC that. I'm just going to tell it our arrival airport, KORD. Because this doesn't want any SIDS or stars. So we'll import that in. And it will populate the nav chart. And then I will say arrival route. And you can see that Chicago is a monster airport with all sorts of arrivals. SimBrief has given us a wind arrival, which is this blue one. Here we are in Grand Rapids. So we're going to use the Wind 8 arrival with the wind transition. And right now it's saying runway 28 right, but that could change. So we're going to load that in. We're going to validate that. And then file that. Ooh, Got to connect to the simulator first. Before I connect to the simulator, what I want to do is to go into the Microsoft options, assistance, user experience, ATC voices. I'm going to turn off Microsoft ATC, and that way I won't have double ATC. We'll get all of our ATC through Pilot to ATC. So let's connect to the simulator. Thinking, thinking, thinking. There we are. We're connected. And we'll validate and file. Now air traffic control knows our flight plan, and it's added in some extra waypoints to put us on our landing runway. Oh, you can see the way it is right now, we're doing a little jinx maneuver. I don't necessarily like this jinx maneuver down here. What is this waypoint way out here? Is that Sames or James? I'm sorry, BAMBB, is that what that is? Wind, Pappy, BAM. I don't like that BAMBB. Let's get rid of that one. And I don't like the other one either, Kirfke. Kirk. I'm sorry, Captain Kirk, you've got to go. You know, Riverside, Iowa, which is just not too far from Chicago, is supposedly the birthplace, the future birthplace of Captain Kirk. Oops. Don't want to add in a waypoint, I want to take one away. So if you ever go to Riverside, Iowa, you'll see a statue of Captain Kirk, and kind of cool to visit. Oh, and here's Vulcan. Yeah, got a little Star Trek theme going on here with the waypoints. You know, the guys who named these waypoints, sometimes they have a bit of a sense of humor, and you get some really funny ones. They'll all have themes to them. I know when you go into Atlanta, Georgia, you get college football references. So it's kind of cool. What's this other waypoint? Well, we'll leave that here. Okay, so we'll go from Tim's, and then it'll put us on a nice straight lineup for our runway, and that looks good. That looks good. Oh well, my goodness, who is this approaching our flight deck? I believe this is our cabin crew.
Let's start setting up.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna get our cabin set up in the back. That's kind of nice. Trying to manipulate some off-screen views. I've got a second monitor set up on my left-hand side, and that's where my stream software is operating. It's also where I have the chat window, and right now the air traffic control program is also over there, so it's a little, I won't say cluttered, but I'll say busy. It's a little busy, but that's okay. Okay. So how are we doing on our McDo programming? I think we're golden. Let's push destination. We'll put in arrival. We are going to be landing to the west. Let's see, was it 27 left or 27 right? That we are destined to come in on. Now, again, the beauty of flight simulation is that you know these things. 28 right is our landing runway. You know, in the real world, your runway can change based on several factors. It could be one thing before you depart and another thing when you get there. But here in the flight sim world, we're pretty sure of our runways. Okay, there's the windy to arrival, and we want the wind transition. Oh. Let's take a look and see what that looks like. I will move the MCP into the plan mode. And then I'm going to step through the waypoints using these arrows. I'm going to use the up arrow, and you can see there's our aircraft at KGRR, KGRR Airport. And brighten that screen a little bit up. And let's step through. And what we're looking for is we don't want any radical, well, like that one, we don't want any radical turns that are beyond our capability. We don't want to go well beyond our what necessitates putting us on a good, easy lineup for the runway. So here you can see it's not terribly radical. We're flying pretty much directly over Lake Michigan to the southwest, directly to wind, and then when we get to wind, we're going to make a pretty much a 90-degree left-hand turn, and then an easy beyond 90-degree turn to Volger. But Volger will put us on a long, straight approach and allow us to get stabilized to runway 28 right. So that's what we were looking for. And that's what we got. Okay, let's come out of the plan view. Get our range down to something more reasonable. I don't mind 20. 20 is a good number. And let's call for our clearance. I'm going to get rid of Microsoft ATC altogether. And let's... Now again, I had a little trepidation using Pilot to ATC. The last time I tried this wasn't very successful, so we'll try it again. When it works, other than a live controller, this is absolutely the best, bar none, realistic air traffic control that there is. And even beyond that, it adds a little radio background chatter to give you that huge immersion level. And when you're into flight simming, everything is about immersion. What I'm doing right now is I'm going around the flight deck and I'm turning up the rheostats, the light switches, and amplifying the light here. Doesn't mean so much in the daytime, but at night, and even with just a little bit of a dark cockpit, it really helps out a lot. Okay, let's, first time with Pilot to ATC, let's see if it works. Oh, got to make sure I'm on the right frequency here. Oops, it's telling me I don't have radio. My radio isn't turned on. Let's see here. Radio off, radio on. Okay, well, I'm going to go to the configuration menu. And I'm going to tell Pilot to ATC to ignore the power switch, so it will think the radio is on even when it thinks it's not. That makes no sense whatsoever, I understand. But let's flip over to the clearance delivery frequency. You can't see that I did that. I did that off screen. And now for the acid test. Grand Rapids clearance delivery, Allegiant 4 tree, ready to copy.
Allegiant 43 is cleared to Kilo Oscar Romeo Delta as filed. Expect departure runway 26 left. Climb and maintain 5,000 feet. Expect higher clearances 2 minutes after departure. Departure on 124.6 squawk 5233.
Allegiant 43 is cleared to Kilo Oscar Romeo Delta as filed. Climb and maintain 5,000 feet. Expect higher clearances 2 minutes after departure. Departure on 124.6 squawk 5233.
Allegiant 43 read back correct. Altimeter 299er2 contact ground on 121.8 when ready for pushback enjoy.
Altimeter 299er2 ground on 121.8 Allegiant 43.
I put the transponder into auto mode, also into TA or traffic advisory mode. I put in our transponder code that will augment our raw radio radar return. I'm going to arm the speed brakes. I'm going to turn on the progressive wind shear switch. And that was all due to pilot to ATC, and I got our altimeter setting of 299er2, which is standard pressure. We are at standard pressure right now. And I know you heard her on the radio, but I believe, let's get her back here.
And for the emergency vehicles, where you headed?
Yes, sir. Red 301. We're headed for spot golf. We're looking for an aircraft inbound. You have anything?
Okay, you're looking for inbound?
That's affirmative.
Okay, Red 301, I'll scroll out the radar here and see where he is. I'll get right back to you with an approximate arrival.
Before start checklist.
Cockpit prep.
Completed.
Completed. Gear pins and covers.
Removed.
Signs.
On and auto.
Adheres.
Nav.
Fuel quantity.
Set.
Takeoff data.
Set.
Barrel ref.
1013. Set.
1013. Set. Down to the line.
Wonderful. Getting a few more lights turned up. I really like these screens to be bright. One of my little issues I wish Microsoft would fix was to have these lights turned up by default.
And for American 400. Yep, you're released at 14 after, so what I want you to do is make a right on Papa, but hold short of Charlie. I'm going to cross in front of you with Southwest.
Understand, Papa, short Charlie.
Thank you.
We have our clearance. We have our aircraft pretty well set up. Let's start the APU, the auxiliary power unit. Let's get ourselves off of ground power. So the first thing we're going to do, we've already tested the APU fire alarm. Now we're going to do the fire alarm for the engines. That's fine.
225.
Roger to taxi.
Once the APU is on, the next step will be start the engines.
Runway 1, let's pull up on Charlie. Hold short of 4. Traffic off the left. American is going to give way to you.
We're going to turn on the fuel pumps.
Hold short of 4, southwest 225.
Push the master APU button to a long count of 3. 1001, 1002, 1003. APU start button. I'm going to turn on the APU bleed. This is going to provide high pressure air to the engines.
The security and safety check are all done. Are we good to start boarding?
Yes, you can start boarding.
Okay.
And because we're going to have hot exhaust gases coming out of the back of the airplane, we're now going to turn on our beacon light. Warn ground personnel to get out from underneath the airplane.
751.
Hello?
Yep, go ahead and change the tower.
But
They're
the
going to get you out
engines
of here
are
in a
not
minute and a
started.
half. Have a good one.
Great, thanks. Good day.
Yep.
So even though passengers are now boarding, now there's, unfortunately, not only does this airport not have a jet bridge, it also doesn't have any stairs. I can't believe in a regional airport like this there are no stairs. So our passengers are basically having to jump, you can do it, jump into the aircraft. But that's what they're doing right now. It's pretty terrible. But if we zoom in on the APU, the auxiliary power unit, it's actually a turbine jet engine located way back here in the back. It doesn't have a function as far as propulsion, but it does.
I've got a company in the alleyway. Continue all the way down to the end of November there. Pull into the block of 1-5. I'll hold you down there so I can get him out.
November and that's it.
You can hear it spooling up. In a perfect world, we should see a little bit of shimmering as those exhaust gases are coming out. I'll check on that here in just a bit. But right now, let's look at the EFIS screen. We'll go to APU, and you can see the APU is available. We're now getting our output from the APU. Let's go back outside. And now that we have the APU available, we can turn off the exterior power, and we can go back outside, and we can tell our ground exterior power, there's him, the little pickup truck there, we can tell him to go away.
I have an emergency I'm dealing
Oops.
with, and a couple of outbounds, and I'll get you all moving. Give me a couple minutes.
So let's tell that power card he can go away. He's disconnected. We are all on our own power now. I can see an aircraft has just departed. Now again, I'm using live traffic, so that could be another flight simmer flying around, or it could be real live air traffic. With COVID going on, airline flight schedules have been majorly disrupted. There are many less flights than there were at one time, and even the flights that are still flying are often using regional aircraft instead of larger aircraft. So I can't tell, of course there are no labels, I don't have any labels on, but I can't tell if he's another flight simmer or if that's generated by a real live flight. We are looking really good upstairs. We have armed our speed brakes, ground spoilers. Once we get our load sheet aboard, we will lock the cabin door, the cockpit door, not allow anyone else onto the flight deck. This particular mod of the Airbus does not have a working printer. The development version does. And once the development version moves into a stable version, I will change over and we'll have access to that printer. Also, the new development version has a electronic flight bag that has a